Josephine. She is perpetually single. Make it loud for Nicole Casaletto. That is so true. You guys, I once dated a guy with night eating syndrome. Anybody heard of that in this room? Right? Okay, so here's the thing. It's a real clinical thing. It starts because you have a severe calorie deficit and you're someone who is prone to sleepwalking as an adult. So you can make full meals but be completely asleep. And this guy told me about it, but he failed to mention just how often it happened and how violent it could be. And then I forgot all about it. So we're dating. The first night we had sex also happened to be the first night I spent the night. And I wake up at 3 a.m. to a frenzy going on in the kitchen, okay? And I'm like on the left side of the bed, laying over my left side, and I eventually hear him shuffling in, and he gets into bed behind me. And I'm just like, hey, babe, what are you doing? And in the most menacing voice I have ever heard, I hear, I'm not eating chicken. So I slowly turn around to my right, and there is this grown man in the fetal fucking position, locking eyes with me, and with 2 hands on a chicken breast, gnawing on it. Yeah. So, of course, as my mom likes to point out, I like to have the last word and always be right. So even with a sleepwalker, I was like, no, actually, you still are. You kind of are eating chicken. He just looked at me and said, you have no regard for me. Finished eating the chicken and then passed out. Yeah, I don't know who won that fight. I do know that I wanted to marry that guy, so if you guys ever worry about like drooling on a pillow in your sleep, you're good. You're good. My parents are at like a really cool age, I like to think, because what they're doing right now, they are letting us all know the family secrets that have been locked up for years because they don't give a fuck anymore. Yeah. I found out on my dad's side, my great-grandfather, married with a bunch of kids, gets sick, goes to the hospital, falls in love with his nurse, they run away, and instead of getting divorced, he just changes his last name from Casaletto to Casey. Yeah. She was in on it, totally cool, they have a bunch of kids, no one says anything. They grow up 2 blocks away from each other in Chicago, and it wasn't until my great-grandfather died that my dad, grandpa, and all the uncles and everything went to the wake and funeral and chose that moment to inform a room full of grieving people that they were all related. Yeah. This is just proof that my family will eventually face our problems. A casket just usually has to be involved. I was a little appalled at this story, and not because it happened, but my mom never told me that I had a bunch of relatives, his great-grandchildren, with the last name Casey, living in Madison, Wisconsin, where I lived for 10 years and was actively dating. And I was like, maybe you wanted to tell me to screen for that last name, Mom. I don't know. Her side of the family, though, also a little weird. Found out farmers, two farming families, her aunts, both married. There was an upper class one that had 2 children in a small town, Wisconsin, and the neighboring town, not the upper class farming one, had 10 children. And the 2 families hated each other, so the cousins all never met. And one of the guys from the 10 children family was in the Navy. And he went on to Madison, Wisconsin one weekend with his Navy buddies, and as you do in the 50s or 60s, ends up hiring a sex worker. I guess that's normal. It wasn't until after they did the deed that they just started chatting nicely, and he was like, hey, where are you from? And she names this really small town in Wisconsin that happens to be his neighboring small town in Wisconsin. And he's like, oh my God, I have relatives there. I really would have liked to know what happened after they found out that they were cousins. Yeah. After this is when I ended up calling my best friend. I'm like, can we go through my dating history in Madison, Wisconsin and make sure I didn't date anyone with the last name Casey? Because in case this runs in the family, I gotta fucking get this out of my system. I think I'm good. I didn't do anything that scandalous when I was in college or anything. I did, however, study abroad in Australia and got a tongue piercing. Yeah, that was pretty scandalous. I didn't get it for the purpose of giving blowjobs. However, I do know that I gave my boyfriend the best blowjob he's ever had. Thank you. The reason I know this is like when I was finishing and went to swallow, I was kind of in a position that had me leaned over. And this man came so hard and so fast. Anybody here ever like jump off a high dive and forget to plug your nose? Yeah. Maybe you were like a prisoner of war and got waterboarded. Maybe you just like laughed after you had a mouthful of Sprite. I don't know, anything like that? It hurts, right? The cool thing, if those things ever happen to you, the viscosity of water is much easier to pass on through. Yeah. So this is going on, and I'm running to the bathroom, and he just gets to lie there because there's no cleanup. It's all in my nose. And that is when you truly realize how many nose hairs you have because it's coagulating up there. Yeah. And then you're in college and your bathroom's not clean and you don't have one of those neti pots because this is 2001. And so you're left with nothing to do but fill the water with sink and just start snorting it up your nose. Yeah. And so that is how I got out of ever having to swallow again. You are more than welcome to borrow that story, not for comedy, but if you just want to get out of swallowing. All right. I'm Nicole Castelletto. Thank you.